Welcome to the next edition of I'm Not a Robot, a podcast for small and medium business targeting Business New South Wales members to help them on their AI journey. Today we've got a special guest, Rod Barnaby. He's the Regional Director of Business New South Wales on the Mid-North Coast. Hi Rod, how are you?
Hi, Justin. I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me here today.
We want to make sure we get a regional voice. The first thing we want to do is get you to do an introduction of yourself. So a 30-second LinkedIn version and then something real about yourself to prove that you're not a robot.
I guess the 30-second introduction is that I've had probably about 25 years experience in business, having created my own business that ended up to employ about 400 people. We provided services to telecommunication businesses across the east coast of Australia. I moved back to the region about 18 years ago and I've run a couple of startup businesses around economic growth. For the last few years, I was involved in a business recovery role, helping businesses in the Mid-North Coast recover from originally the Black Summer bushfires and then the devastating floods in 2021 and 22 and helping businesses recover from COVID as well. So it included all small and medium businesses on the Mid-North Coast.
So it's pretty rugged times. All right, so
yeah.
We'll just jump in and we'll pepper you with a few questions. So just give us the answers as you see fit. So the first question is really about regional business pressures. So you obviously talked to a lot of small businesses on the Mid-North Coast. What are the current pressures they're dealing with right now that maybe their city business counterparts don't really appreciate?
We talk to businesses right up and down the Mid-North Coast all the time. The business pressures are really clear. It's the rising costs of doing business. Workers' compensation insurance is probably the headline act, cost of energy, taxes and compliance. And some of those pressures are felt right across the board, whether it's a regional or metro business. But there's other pressures for regional businesses that stand out. Living in a regional area, you're going to have to deal with bigger distances and more travel. That's both staff traveling to work, going to visit clients and getting supplies and stock into the region as well. My team and I have spent the last couple of weeks traveling up and down the Mid-North Coast, meeting with the members. Every trip's an hour, 2 hours each way. Spent hours in the car just to go and see our members and meet with businesses. With the rising cost of fuel, that's a big impost. Getting supplies into the region is always difficult. Bringing in supplies from overseas, you land a container in Sydney from, say, China, you've still got to get it 4 or 6 or more hours up into the region before you get that as an input into your business or out to your customers and clients. And with the rising cost of fuel, that's a big cost. So distance is an issue for regional businesses. Labour shortages, skills and training is a big issue. Trying to find the right people with the right skills in regional areas is quite challenging. The cost of housing has gone up post-COVID, so we don't have the advantage now of being able to offer people cheaper housing. It's sometimes on par with some of the more metro areas. And growing the skills and training in our region is challenging too. We often have to send trainees out of the region to get the right training and accreditation, and that incurs a cost to business of getting someone to where they need to go, which could be Newcastle or Sydney, or in some cases further, accommodation when they get there. In the case of young apprentices, they may not even have a vehicle to get to where they've got to train. So they're difficult issues for businesses to overcome in terms of skills and training. I've got a longer list of other business pressures for regional areas too. If you'd like me to go through a couple of others, don't get me started on regional airports.
No, throw it all in. This is your chance to get it off your chest and educate other businesses and other regions.
Look, regional airport is a big one, and we've been doing a lot of work on it. We're going to launch Business New South Wales policy paper on regional airports here in Port Macquarie in about a month's time. The cost of flying from Port Macquarie, for example, or Coffs Harbour, and the cost of flying to Sydney and return, you could probably fly to Bali or Vietnam for a holiday for the same amount of money. Flights are unreliable, they're not frequent enough, and more often than not, your flight's going to get delayed or cancelled. That's a real issue for business, getting people into the region for work, medical supplies, getting doctors in and out of the region, and general business travel is a real impost for regional businesses. General insurance is higher in regional areas because of the impact and the frequency of natural disasters. Businesses have to cope with smaller markets. It's harder to specialise. which impacts your revenue and
Yeah.
cash flow, particularly in an environment of rising business costs and reduced spending due to the cost of living crisis. And regional infrastructure is a massive issue. We have sewerage, water and transport infrastructure issues in Port Macquarie that's holding up the development of housing and employment land. That flows through to business, and there's infrastructure issues right through the region. The main arterial roads to the west, Waterfall Way and the Oxley Highway, have been closed for a large part of the last few years due to weather and natural disasters. And that makes transport to the west and visitors from the west really challenging.
I guess
And there's a few.
one of the things I'm hearing is that businesses that support regional businesses, even if they're in Sydney or one of the other capital cities, they need to be more appreciative of that. So how do they use technology, AI to allow training to be remote, or they need to do the travel, or they need to be aware of those other aspects? Because sometimes it's very easy for businesses that are in metropolitan Sydney or metropolitan Brisbane or Melbourne to make an assumption that everyone can come to them, where in fact perhaps they need to think differently about how they provide those services to help reduce the costs and impact on regional businesses from a supply chain point of view.
Absolutely. I'd like to think I'm an advocate for regional New South Wales. I think we need to rethink how we do things. Regions act and operate differently to metropolitan areas. There's different pressures, and the needs of regional businesses are different to metro areas. So we do have to think differently and act differently to support regional businesses.
Yeah, I grew up in a small country town called Weewall near Narrabri.
Yep.
Definitely familiar with regional airports at Narrabri and Tamworth, and I've got friends in Dubbo and Orange and a few other places as well. I end up driving because if I've got to go back for a family visit or visit friends or for a funeral or anything like that, I just don't fly, because it's better to take the 6-hour drive, 7-hour drive, because you can't rely on the plane's going to either get you there or get you back when you need to get back. So I definitely feel your pain there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And anytime I need to go to Sydney now, it's a 4.5 hour drive. I will often just drive rather than taking the risk of flying and the cost of flying, because there's a chance I won't get back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I went
Flights
to
are cancelled.
your excellent tech forum in Port Macquarie a few weeks ago, and luckily I've got a brother who lives only about 45 minutes away, so that fitted for me. But I looked at the flights and the cost and the reliability, and I thought, no, it's going to drive, even if it means I've got to take an extra day in the trip.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Rod, off the back of that, Justin introduced a couple of ideas around the potential for AI utilisation. If we look at these regional business owners, they're wearing numerous hats. They're not just one person doing one function, they're doing multiple functions in any business they're running. Where do you see AI realistically easing the load on those individuals?
You're exactly right, Luke. New South Wales is a small business state. We've got over 900,000 small businesses in the state. Over 9 in 10 employ fewer than 20 people, and more than 60% are non-employing or businesses with fewer than 5 staff. So that means the business owners are wearing multiple hats, sometimes all of them, and they're always looking for ways they can relieve some of the pressure that brings. Where can AI realistically reduce that load? Sometimes it depends on the digital literacy of the business owner.
Yeah.
I think the easiest and most sensible place to start are those predictable, routine administrative tasks don't necessarily require a lot of decision making from the business owner. Things like prioritizing your inbox, helping you focus on the important correspondence, drafting routine responses. I hear of business owners starting to use AI for those simple, repeatable tasks pretty regularly now. You might have touched on this, Justin, at our tech summit recently, but reviewing lengthy documents like contracts or reviewing legislation so that you can pull out the key points of those long documents that previously took ages to read and summarize and filter out the key pieces of information. Compliance is one of the biggest issues for small and medium businesses. So anything we can do to ease pressure on compliance is going to be a win. We use it. I know many businesses use AI for note taking in meetings, summarizing discussions so you can keep track of actions and send those actions out to key stakeholders, focusing on the outcome of meetings rather than reviewing information. I imagine businesses now are starting to look at AI to help them automate some of their systems like stock control, forecasting, order placement, processing, tracking of deliveries, so they can become more efficient in those areas. I think for small business owners trying to do everything, look at repeatable routine tasks where you can apply AI effectively to get outcomes more easily and then focus more on productivity. Social media marketing is another area that I think businesses are looking at.
There's a really strong response there, Rod, and really resonates. Not, I mean, general business themes, of course, but as you're saying, as they're looking at the multiple hat situation is so pressing to doing those things, focusing on those repeatable, potentially mundane type activities, note taking, transcripts, follow-ups. And there is this spectrum that you and your peers are going to have to work through of where's the spectrum between automation and genuine AI and understanding where does one start and where does one stop. But it's a journey to best use technology to leverage and get a bit of time back in your day to do what you do and service your customers rather than worry about emails.
I learned this in my role helping businesses when they're recovering from bushfire, flood and COVID. It's a traumatic experience. A lot of business owners felt overwhelmed and they still do. It's rising business costs and 30-40% increase in fuel costs right now. Business owners feel overwhelmed. And I think AI can be used to help them get started on a solution so the business owners don't feel quite so overwhelmed. I think it's good to use it as a start point to say, how am I going to attack this problem? And you can use an AI tool to get you started, which then helps you take the next step. And I think it reduces that sense of overwhelm that I think a lot of businesses have.
I think Justin and I previously talked about this, reduce the blank page time. Get started. They've got a bit of an idea. How do we flesh it out? How do we get started? Exactly what you've hit on there is exactly that in a nutshell. Reduce that blank page time and get started, get moving, help it to initiate or spark a movement. Yeah, absolutely.
I think definitely for business owners, the key challenge is save 1 hour a day. And saving that 1 hour a day gives you a bit more time to focus on the next problem, which potentially maybe gets you to save another half hour or hour, or save an hour's time in your sales team or an hour's time in your customer service team. So you just need to build, but you're getting started and building, just that's what you've got to do, because overwhelm is definitely a massive problem.
It's a huge issue for small business owners, but also in regional areas. I think the responsibility weighs heavy that you got to make this business work because there's not that many other options. Some people feel like, I'm here, I'm going to have to make this work. And that does become overwhelming. Again, particularly with so many disruptions and pressures that are being applied to small and medium businesses over the last few years, there's a lot of pressure on business owners.
I think the biggest reflection I'd make about regional businesses is that they're generally more part of a community of businesses, but also much clearly part of the social fabric. So if they're overwhelmed and if things go badly for them, then that has a much bigger impact on the community than, say, a business in Parramatta or Penrith or Liverpool or Hurstville. I think I'm not to downplay that. Business going bad is good, but it's part of a local community because you can't always replace those services or those jobs with someone down the road.
And you're going to run into people down the street.
Yeah, exactly.
If you let people down, you're going to run into the supermarket or the pub or at the footy, and you can't escape.
Well, so we might move to skills shortages. You mentioned them already, so they're a constant issue for regional areas. How do you think AI helps small teams punch above their weight?
I think different skills and training is a massive issue for business in regional areas. I would say top three all of the time. So you got rising costs of business, skills and training. How does AI help businesses punch above their weight? If businesses take the approach that they're going to use AI to replace people, it's not going to work. I think businesses need to look at how they use AI to achieve more with the same number of people. People with the right skills are hard to come by. So we need businesses to use AI to do more. We talked about some of those efficiencies that I mentioned just a little while ago. But if I can use probably a local example around aged care, I used to be on an aged care board here, a standalone regional aged care provider. The business was struggling to survive because of the complexities of aged care. Small regional town, there wasn't enough income to keep it afloat. We were always struggling to find nurses and care staff because it's a tough job. There's a huge administrative burden in aged care. So it's difficult to manage that admin burden and still be able to provide the level of care you want to the residents. In speaking to aged care providers more recently, they're now looking at AI to make up the gap between the staff that are available and the productivity needed to give you the time to provide a better level of care to residents in aged care. So I think AI can be used to increase productivity, to maximise the value of the staff that you do have, and allow you to provide a better level of service to your customers, in this case, aged care. And I think the same principle can be applied to education, health, where health is always struggling to find the right staff. Any business can use AI to improve productivity, to focus more on their customers, which is important in regional communities, providing that personalised level of service to your regional community. So I think businesses need to focus on improving productivity to make up that shortfall in skills and training in regional areas.
I think you look at a lot of the industries you just mentioned, compliance and paperwork and bureaucracy can soak up a lot of time. A typical solution for auditors and government increase additional legislation which requires more paperwork and more information, but that actually takes people away from the front line of caring for a person in a medical setting or an aged care setting or an educational setting. You want that human contact because that's what makes things, services come alive and make people feel supported. So AI can definitely assist in doing that in terms of writing, helping write some of that documentation, some of that compliance information, speeding up the process so they can spend their time with their patients or the other people they're trying to work with.
I think if businesses can outsource that administrative routine tasks, compliance, that does allow their staff to focus more on customer service and support. One risk area I do think, and it came up in our technology summit, Justin, is that we don't want to lose the skills and experience pathways and the ability to think critically, that in 10, 20 years time, we still have the ability to sense check. Come up in discussions around health and education, that we need to make sure we maintain the skills and the experience and the critical thinking while we're outsourcing the administrative and compliance to AI. You guys might have a thought on that.
We completely concur with that. It does not replace the knowledge worker. It does not replace that level of consciousness around the task at hand, be it health, be it education, be it I'm running my plumbing business. It could be anywhere, but there are certain routine, mundane tasks fit for purpose. Changing how you care for an 85-year-old retirement village resident is another story altogether. And I don't think replacing high care nursing or something like that is something on the agenda just yet.
No,
anytime soon. Right?
I think you've got to use the tools to help you be productive and do the jobs, whether that's getting information more quickly about a situation. Now, if you've got to get information about a particular condition or health practice so that can then be implemented, you still need to make judgment whether the person can do what they've got to do. There's a lot of general advice that AI can find, which can be helpful and inform the decision. But at the end of the day, you've still got to make that fit the person who's there because they can't always understand it, can't always physically do it, emotionally, mentally do it. That's a human call. AI is never going to be able to do that. So you need to be able to have that human connection. You've got to deliver it in a that person understands and they feel connected to, because the biggest challenge in communities globally at the moment is loneliness. Why that human connection is more important, definitely.
I think what's changed from when I was a kid looking through encyclopedias to try and source information. Now we have a fantastic set of World Book encyclopedias that are proudly displayed in the round room. The challenge for their generation is information is instantly at hand. We can use AI to analyze that information to get answers that used to take months to find. The difference now is that with that information and the ability to analyze it instantly available, it's how they then act on that information and what they do with it. And I think that's where we need to maintain that human critical thinking and decision-making in the use of that information.
Agreed. And as we move on to the next one around trust and relationships, I think that's something you've already touched on, Rod. Regional businesses value trust and relationships. You're going to see the person down at the shops, at the footy, at the school drop-off, they'll be around. Does that change how AI should be used?
I think it does. We get businesses coming into our region. I'm based in Port Macquarie, but we approach throughout the Mid-North Coast. We get businesses coming into our area who want to talk to us about how do they connect, not just with other businesses in the region, but the communities in the region. How do they embed themselves in the region? That's for commercial reasons, but also, like I did when I moved to the region 18 years ago, I wanted to become part of the community. I joined the surf club, I coached the soccer team, I play sport myself, and those connections are important in regional areas, and they affect how your business operates, whether you're a small, medium or large business. You're going to run into people in the street, so it does matter. We're careful about how we behave as Business New South Wales because we know that we're going to run into amendments all around the place. You definitely need to take into account how you use AI when the building of trust and relationships is so important. We heard at the technology summit recently, Justin, that you've got to be careful about producing AI slop or AI rubbish. If you're sending information out to local businesses, if they're starting to get information from you that looks like it's been written by AI and doesn't reflect the way you speak or act or the services you provide, people are going to know and they're going to make decisions based on that. You've got to be very careful to use AI, not let it control your business, but you control how it's used to make sure you maintain the trust and relationships with the people in the community that you're going to live and work with on a daily basis. Super important.
I think trust comes down to people want to know that you're making an effort, particularly in a service business. If you send something out that looks like it's just been generated by AI and you haven't shown any due care or diligence or interest in their particular circumstances, then that's going to work very poorly for you because people go, why would I talk to them? I can get Copilot or another AI to give me the answers anyway. So you've got to make sure you don't do that because you don't want to destroy the trust. Innovation is a big thing, and businesses can use AI to innovate in the way they deliver services and expand their capabilities. Then I think in regional communities, there's a lot more pride of a local business that does well, where a local business can punch above its weight across New South Wales or across Australia or across the world. I think one of the things AI does is give that ability for a small business to appear much bigger than they actually are and to compete against larger companies because it does give them that ability to scale more effectively. So do you have any thoughts about how innovation and pride can help businesses in the Mid-North Coast to take that next level up?
There's some good businesses in and around the Mid-North Coast already, and I think you're right. They can use AI to innovate and take some steps that probably would have been a lot more difficult beforehand. I don't have any obvious examples to hand, but I think it's an opportunity for regional businesses to punch above their weight.
So if a Mid-North Coast business owner comes to you and says, I'm curious about AI, but I don't want to break anything, what would you recommend as a first safe step?
I'm probably a good person to answer this question because I'm not known as an early adopter. In fact, if any of my mates end up listening to this podcast, they'd find it hilarious that I'm actually on here talking about technology.
You're not on your own, don't worry.
I'm probably a good person to come to about how do we take a first step. First thing I do is go and find a local IT provider to give me some guidance on what should I be doing, what direction should I take, particularly around security and protection of information and privacy, because I think that's going to be important for businesses to make sure they get that piece right. Beyond that, and with that sort of support, I'd suggest people need to start small, just start somewhere, probably around improvements in your personal efficiency, some productivity gains in the office, use AI to draft some emails, summarize documents, do some analysis to improve efficiencies in and around your office. I wouldn't probably go straight out to customer-facing tasks until you gain a bit of confidence in using AI, particularly in small businesses. You want to make sure you're getting it right first. You could then look at creating an agent to take the next step in how you make AI work for you. Make sure that when you do start sending information out, it's aligned with your tone and language and the themes that you want to work on. When you do get to the step, when you want to start using AI for customer-facing stuff, keep the importance of trust and relationship in mind and how you use it when you go out to your customers and markets with AI. Probably also worth taking some time to understand how AI is embedded in software and systems that you're already using. So a lot of you guys know this, of course. Cloud-based software is already using some level of AI. So it'd be a good thing to understand the systems that you're using, where AI is already embedded in those systems. My advice, particularly to small businesses, would be get started. Take it in small steps, get some advice, make sure you've got the basics in place like privacy, security, and then protect your business reputation when you're looking to use AI with customer-facing or market-facing information.
Gee, for a guy who doesn't know very much, it looks like you want to put us out of a job.
I was going to say.
So
you can thank Lauren and Carla who work with me. They're very good coaches around what I should be thinking about AI.
Probably I think this might be the last one we're covering together, Rod, but I think something we touched on at the top of the conversation. Fuel and transport costs have risen sharply in the last month alone. Significant global uncertainty. Regional businesses feel this. It's not some remote thing that's happening just in the Middle East, right? But it's something that's really acutely impacting you immediately in mid-north New South Wales. How should SMBs,
Yeah, it's a massive impact.
how should we SMBs think about using productivity and AI simply removing people costs more? What's your response to that? Is there a way to assist?
I love the saying, never waste a good crisis.
Yeah.
Businesses are struggling with this increased fuel usage and the increased transport costs. Businesses are reporting to me a 30 to 40% increase in transport costs, and I know that's being felt right across regional New South Wales. So businesses are going to have to work out how to cope with this. They can't absorb those costs, sorry.
Yeah.
They're trying not to pass them on to customers, but at some point they're going to have to. That's a great opportunity to see how can I do better in my business in terms of reducing costs, creating better efficiencies, being more productive with less. And I think that's where AI can help. We had a local example of a tradesman who used AI to reorganize his daily routine in terms of job planning and transport to try and, based on the proximity of each job to the next. So he's used AI to review all of that, saved himself some costs on a daily basis in terms of fuel usage. That would have been a good thing to do anyway, but the fuel crisis has forced his hand. I think other businesses are the same, that if you take AI and use it as a way of analysing your workflows, analyse your major costs like energy, insurance, review your contracts, where's the money going out of the business and how can we reduce those costs to cope with the increased cost of fuel and transport? I don't think businesses would want, or hopefully they won't be looking at how they reduce staff. I'd like to see businesses using AI to become more efficient, reduce costs and become more productive, keep their staff in place because you're going to need that when things come good again. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to use AI to review the way you run your business, and that could be a good thing in the longer term.
Yeah. The current uncertainties, it's impacted everyone and contributes to that overwhelm we were talking about before. And in terms of starting simply, the first thing you can do is go into Copilot, for example, and just ask, I'm this business located in a regional centre. What are examples in other parts of the world where they can use AI to reduce costs, reduce fuel, etc. So ask it to give you some guidelines in terms of what you should consider. So use the tools to get you started in terms of solving those business problems.
But the availability of information now is right at hand.
Yeah.
So when you get pressure applied to your business, like an increase in cost, there is information there that you can use.
Yeah.
I think AI is great to take that information, make decisions that help you survive a crisis, reduce your costs, become more efficient, and then you're a better business going forward.
I think we spoke about this before, Rod. It's about focusing on what's the business problem you want to solve. Focus on the first one, I guess, ideas and implementation around that. And then you can move on to the next business problem. Don't try and boil the ocean. Pick a problem, research it, use AI to research it, use AI to give you a potential implementation plan, use AI to potentially give you a policy or whatever it is to be able to implement it, or an execution plan to implement it. And then once you've got that humming, you can then move on to the next one. So that's all the formal questions. Do you have any questions for us? This is always the risky part. We've asked us the curly ones.
Look, I don't. It's been really great to chat to you guys. I'd like to thank you again, Justin, for coming up to our technology summit recently. I thought it was a
pleasure.
Great addition to the day, and the feedback we've had there has been exceptional, just in terms of the practical guidance and takeaways that you were able to talk about. I think it was really helpful for regional businesses. Probably the message I'd like to leave everyone is, as I said at the start, that regions and regional businesses operate differently.
Yeah.
We need to work together to support regional businesses, because without them, we're not going to survive metropolitan areas alone. So regions are really important to the state and the country. We need to do a lot to support our regional businesses.
100% agree. Thanks, Rod. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you in the future.